Tiff? Tiff? The same guy to keep walking by my empty tea? The guy that see I've been done eating but keep walking by without dropping off the bill? Man, I know he see me sitting over here. Tiff? Man, y'all waiters better stop playing with me.
Welcome back. Appreciate everybody that tuned in to episode 1. Episode 2, I'm going to take a little sidestep from the sneaker talk and talk about something near and dear to my heart, something that has kind of troubled me for years now, right? So, if you're like me, you probably can cook, but don't cook a lot. You go out to eat a lot. I've been going out to eat for years. I can cook. It just has always been a thing where it takes so long to cook. By the time I'm done cooking, I just feel like I wasted a lot of time. And then you eat, it doesn't take very long to eat. So I just feel like sometimes cooking just takes a lot of time, but it's not really worth the time. So if you have the money to eat out, why not just eat out, right? So we eat out quite often, maybe 2-3 times a week or more. And something that's always troubled me with that is figuring out the tip, whether it be dining in or carrying out, figuring out how much to tip and, kind of when and when not to tip. If you're dining in, I've always understood it as the rule of thumb is 10, 15, or 20% minimum, right? But is that based on service? Is that based on the food? One of the things that I've always questioned is if the chef does a terrible job preparing the food and the waiter or waitress is great and you give a bad tip, was it based on the food? Was it based on the service? Right? Because I believe the tip goes to the waiter or waitress. The chefs and everybody in the kitchen are paid a flat hourly, not below minimum wage. All the servers, to my understanding, are paid below minimum wage and then make up the rest in tips. So if the food's terrible, they bring out the food, they do a great job, and you give them a bad tip because the food was terrible, they didn't do anything bad. How does that play into, you're calculating the tip amount? Me personally, I've always based my tipping on the service, totally separate from the food. So sometimes the food comes out and it's amazing, and the waiter or waitress is terrible, so I leave a bad tip or no tip. I know it's like a super taboo thing to leave no tip, but if the service is really that bad, why am I giving you any additional money at all? So, but on the flip side, sometimes the food has come out terrible and I'm getting really great service and I leave a really great tip. Sometimes, 20% or above if the service is that amazing, right? So one of the other questions I've always kind of wondered was, on the backside of that, are you tipping based off the bill amount? Because that's also like a super confusing thing to me, right? So if the bill's $100 and you're tipping 20%, you're tipping $20. But the person servicing your table had zero to do with what you ordered for the most part. If I came to a steakhouse that was super expensive, I knew I was gonna pay a lot of money for my meal. So if the meal is $140, $160 and I'm leaving 20% of that, that was just based off of what I wanted to order, not necessarily how they serviced me. So I'm paying them more money and they're not really dictating what's coming out on those plates at all. If anything, I feel like those tips should be going back to the staff preparing the food, because a lot of times if the food's great at an expensive restaurant, you're paying for both the service and the food. So that's always been super confusing to me, why, once the bill gets up to a certain point and it's super expensive, I'm just giving you more money based off of what I ordered, not necessarily the service you're providing. So I've only known a few people that worked in restaurants where it was based in tips. And back when I used to ask them, they were always just saying, hey, 20% minimum, 20% minimum, whatever. But I've never worked in food. I've never had the desire to. It was never something that, kind of struck me as, hey, I want to get into this, because, you can make a lot of money in the tips. Because the way I, mentally think about tipping, it's the food has to be good and the service has to be good. So, kind of a really confusing thing to me. I remember about a year ago, we went to a steakhouse and the bill came out, eventually it was about $200. So if I'm doing 20%, that's gonna leave me at a $40 tip. But my thing was, the steak was damn near $100 each. So it was $200 right there. So had I just ordered $25 or $30 steak and the bill was $60, that would have made your tip $12. Right? So it's kind of weird how, based on what you order, sometimes the tip goes up when the service doesn't really change. Because, if I'm at a table here and somebody's at a table over here, and the same server is helping us, and we order this one's super expensive and this one's a pretty reasonably priced meal, those tips are going to vary, not on the service but what on those people decided to order. So something I just kind of always wonder. I've got a real curious mind when it comes to things like that, because sometimes there's no definitive answer of how much you tip, when you don't tip. And the thing to go in line with that is, when you get carry out food, do you tip? You still usually, if I go somewhere, I'm using my card. So I hand them the card, they hand me the slip back to sign. So it always has the tip line on there. So sometimes it's like, am I supposed to tip? Am I not supposed to tip? And then the thing I always wonder that I've never found the answer to is, so they hand me the slip and I sign it, but if I don't write amount and I don't write tip, what happens if I just sign it and slide it back to them? That's what I usually do, but I don't know. I mean, they could just fill out the rest for me and leave a $300 tip if they wanted to. So something I've always wondered, but maybe someone has the answers. I've always asked, nobody's been able to tell me kind of how that works though. So just a few different things I kind of wonder about. I posed those same questions to Instagram about a week ago, and we got a lot of different responses. We'll go through a few of those and kind of see, what you guys think about it. So when I posed the question, how do you determine how much you tip? We got a few different answers back. Ill Will the Barber said, depends on the service and total of the bill. Great service and bill is $200, then it's $30 to $40 in tip, which is kind of what I said a moment ago. If you're just doing 20%, then it mainly depends on what you order, right? So if I go in and get a $10 meal, essentially my tip is going to have to be $2. If I get a $200 bill, $200 meal, then my tip is $40, right? My guy Timmy Price said, if the service was good, I'm off top 25%. Poor interaction or attention to detail, 20%. So that's like super strange to me. If someone's giving you bad service and you're still tipping them 20%, especially if you're at a nice restaurant and your meal is expensive. So if I'm spending $100 on a meal, that means I'm still tipping you $20 for bad service. Evan and Caleb kind of said similar things here. Evan said price of the meal and how good the service is, and Caleb said always based on the service, but I leave 20% minimum, seeing how low their base is. So he's accounting into account here how low they get paid without the tips. But like I kind of always thought in the back of my head, if you're being paid off of a service, then you have to provide a pretty good service. If you translate it to getting a haircut, and the person's not giving you a very good haircut, you're probably not going to leave a very good tip. So if I'm going out to a restaurant and I'm expecting good service and I'm not getting good service, then I'm probably not going to leave a very good tip, or any tip at all, or I just won't return to the restaurant, which will definitely probably hurt them in the long run, because negative word of mouth spreads a lot better than positive word of mouth. And then I also posed the question of tipping on carryout, and we got a few different responses for that. Jen Twice said always $4 to $5. Tipping on to go is crazy to me, because they're not giving you any kind of service. You call it in, you go pick it up, you do pretty much all the work, and they just go, hand you your bag, have you sign or take your cash, and you're out. So I've always been kind of confused on why you would tip on to go. My guy D Red said, nope, why would I tip someone who didn't service me? So kind of in line with what I'm saying here, if they didn't provide the service, which is what they're being tipped for, then why am I leaving a tip at all? And then this next response, I got quite a few people pretty similar to this. Social Studies said, nope, maybe I leave the coins or round up to the nearest dollar if I paid with my card. Sometimes I do that as well. Definitely if it's a restaurant that I frequent, and whether it be dining in or getting to carry out, definitely rounding up to the nearest dollar. If it's $22.48, just rounding up to 23, because they're not getting that same cash directly that day anyway. So things of that nature. I think leaving coins is tacky, regardless. So if your total's $25.17 and you give them 26 and tell them keep the change, that's pretty tacky, kind of a slap in the face. But definitely rounding up to the nearest dollar can sometimes be a pretty nice thing, just a nice gesture. If someone is working on tips and then happens to be working at the counter as well, doing the to-go orders. So I don't know, I have my thoughts on it. I got to hear from my Instagram followers and family there, but I want to hear your guys' thoughts. When you go out to eat, how do you decide how much to tip? And then on the flip side, when you get carry out, do you tip? Yes or no? And why or why not? Just some stuff I'm kind of curious about that everybody kind of has a different opinion on, and I like hearing different opinions on it so I can kind of get a better understanding of why people do and do not do things. So shout out to all the bartenders and servers out there working hard for your tips. I know it's not easy, but definitely it's not going unnoticed either. A lot of people that commented back said they definitely leave tips and leave them well depending on the service. So as long as you guys keep up the good service, I'm pretty sure you continue to make some good money. We got the comment section down here. Hit me up, let me know your thoughts. Be back in a few days with a new video for you. Peace.